When we first moved into Crestfield Estates, I thought we had found our dream home. I remember driving through those gates for the first time, smiling as Dana squeezed my hand from the passenger seat. The kids, Jada and Miles, were in the back, playing some game on their tablets, oblivious to how big of a moment this was for us. For the first time, we weren't renting. This house, with its stone path, two-car garage, and a maple tree right out front, was ours. The neighborhood itself looked like something from a magazine. Manicured lawns, fresh mulch beds, neighbors walking golden retrievers on clean sidewalks. It felt peaceful, safe, stable. I had worked for this, years of double shifts. In IT consulting, saving every bonus. Dana had pulled overtime as a trauma nurse. We earned this. Moving day was a blur of boxes, hugs from new neighbors, and kids running through the empty halls. One woman, though, didn't offer a smile. I noticed her watching from across the street, arms crossed, lips pursed. Later, I found out her name was Cheryl Whitmore, the HOA president. When we met, her handshake was stiff, her tone polite, but cold. "Just so you know," she said, glancing toward my garage, "we like things tidy around here." At the time, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just one of those overly particular HOA types. But 3 days after we moved in, an envelope appeared on our doorstep. Inside was an official notice. Violation. Garage door left open longer than community standards permit. I remember laughing. Not out of humor, but disbelief. We were just getting settled. The garage had been open because I was hauling in boxes. But I'd soon learn that in Crestfield Estates, some doors aren't supposed to stay open long at all. At first, I tried to let the garage door violation go. Maybe they were just strict, but it didn't stop there. A week later, we got another notice, this time for Jada's tricycle and a soccer ball she left on the lawn. "Toys must be stored out of view," it read. I thought it was petty, but fine. We moved them. Then came one about our front garden bed. Dana had added some solar lights and fresh mulch, outlined with small white stones from Home Depot. Nothing flashy. Still, the notice called it unapproved edging. Next was the flag. It wasn't even controversial, just a small one of the university Dana graduated from. The HOA flagged it under non-sanctioned decorative items. It started feeling deliberate, especially when I walked the neighborhood and saw other homes, white families, with basketball hoops in their driveways, wind chimes, garden gnomes, even flags. No violation tags, nothing taped to their doors, just ours. I decided to attend the next HOA meeting to ask about the policies. Maybe I was misunderstanding something. The room was full, and when I spoke up, I barely got through a sentence before Cheryl cut me off. Twice, I tried again. A man on the board just stared at his phone. Someone laughed under their breath when I asked how rules were enforced consistently. After the meeting, an older black man approached me outside. I didn't know him, but he lived a few streets over. He leaned in and said quietly, "They've always been picky, but especially with families who look like us." Then he nodded and walked away. That was the moment the pattern clicked. This wasn't about rules. This was about control, about sending a message. And I wasn't about to ignore it anymore. We threw a quiet birthday party for Miles in the backyard, just close friends, a few kids from his school, and some cupcakes. No music blaring, no rowdy crowd. The kids ran around, playing tag, while the adults talked and laughed under string lights. By 8 p.m. everyone was gone, and the backyard was spotless. The very next morning, there it was, another envelope taped to our door. Excessive noise disturbance, complaint received by multiple neighbors. I looked around. The neighbors directly beside us were at the party. The ones across the street waved and said happy birthday the day before. It didn't make sense, unless someone was watching us, waiting for an excuse. That afternoon, Dana checked the mailbox and found a note. No return address, no name. Just 6 words scrawled on a ripped paper. "You don't belong here. Leave." She brought it in with shaking hands. "Marcus, this is getting serious." I couldn't argue, but I was done brushing it off. I drove to the hardware store and bought 2 security cameras, one for the porch, one for the side gate. I started logging every violation, every letter, even who was around our house at certain times. I knew I wasn't imagining this. At dinner that night, Dana looked at me and said, "Maybe we should think about moving." She wasn't being dramatic, she was scared. And I understood, but I leaned across the table and said, "No, we bought this house fair and square. We're not leaving just because they want us to." I saw the worry in her eyes, but also the quiet agreement. If they thought they could scare us out of our home, they were about to find out they picked the wrong family. A week after the birthday party, we got what the HOA called a final warning. The notice was typed in bold red letters. Any further violations will result in daily fines and possible legal action. It didn't even list a specific violation this time, just vague language about ongoing non-compliance and refusal to cooperate. It was clear they were done pretending this was about rules. That weekend, Dana took the kids to the community park while I stayed behind. When they got back, Jada was quiet. Later, when I asked what was wrong, she finally said, "Some older kids told us we don't fit here. They said we should go back where we came from. I don't remember the last time I felt that kind of heat behind my eyes." I had posted a laminated copy of my challenge letter on our front porch bulletin board, just a simple sheet saying we were disputing the HOA's harassment and listing examples of unequal enforcement. I wanted our neighbors to know what was happening. 2 nights later, the porch camera caught a man, middle-aged, hoodie, fast walker, sneaking up to the house and yanking the letter down. He was gone in seconds. The footage didn't show his face clearly, but I had a good guess who it was. Then came the final straw. One afternoon, a small boy came up to our porch with Jada's missing bike, the one we thought had been stolen a week earlier. He looked down, ashamed, and whispered, "Sorry, my dad said they took it, but I didn't want to keep it." He left before I could ask anything else. I took the bike inside, locked the door, and sat at the table with my hands clasped tight. This wasn't just about harassment anymore. This was theft, intimidation. My family was under siege, and I was. Done staying quiet. The morning after Jada's bike was returned, I made 2 phone calls. One to a civil rights attorney I found online, Janice Morales, a woman with a sharp voice and a sharper record. The second was to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. "This isn't just harassment," I told them. "This feels like discrimination." By the end of the week, Janice had filed an official complaint with HUD on our behalf, citing racial targeting and unequal rule enforcement under the Fair Housing Act. She wasn't playing games. She also requested access to the HOA's meeting minutes as part of discovery. And that's where things started getting real. Buried in the documents were notes, scribbled by board members, using phrases like preserving the community's culture and keeping the character intact. One note referenced controlling certain changes before they spread. Janice highlighted them in red and sent me a screenshot. "This language," she said, "isn't just coded. It's a neon sign." Word spread fast. The local paper picked up the story after seeing my public complaint filing. Then a small neighborhood blog posted it under the headline, "HOA accused of racial targeting again." A reporter showed up outside our house the next day, asking for an interview. At first, I hesitated, but then I thought about Jada's face when she told me what those kids said at the park. I thought about Dana flinching every time she opened the mailbox, so I stepped in front of that camera and told the truth about everything. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but for the first time since moving into Crestfield Estates, I didn't feel like we were on the defensive anymore. We were taking the fight to them. The night the news segment aired, I sat on the couch with Dana and the kids, holding the remote a little too tight. Crestfield HOA. Accused of targeting black family. That was the headline. The footage showed our house, the birthday party clip, the pile of violation notices I'd kept. I spoke plainly, calmly, but I didn't hold back, and it hit a nerve. By morning, I had 3 emails and a voicemail from families in neighboring communities. Latino, Asian American, and yes, black, saying they'd experienced the same kind of treatment from their HOAs. Petty violations, selective enforcement, shaming tactics. One woman wrote, "Thank you. I thought it was just me." The local news story gained traction, and by the end of the week, the state's Housing Commission issued a statement. "We are opening a formal investigation into Crestfield Estates HOA for potential Fair Housing Act violations." That same day, Cheryl Whitmore made her first public comment. She stood in front of the HOA clubhouse with 2 other board members and said, "We enforce rules equally. This family is creating unnecessary division, but it wasn't landing the way she thought." At the next community forum, normally a half-empty room with sleepy discussions, the place was packed. Residents brought printed copies of our news story. Someone had even made a sign that read, "We stand with the Bells." Cheryl tried to steer the meeting, but every time she used phrases like maintaining standards, someone countered with, "Whose standards?" And then came the part I didn't expect. Apologies. A white couple from across the street stood up and said they'd noticed the unfair targeting, but were afraid to speak. Others nodded. A few clapped. It didn't fix everything. But for the first time, we weren't standing alone. 3 months after filing the complaint, we received the ruling. A thick envelope from the state's Housing Commission arrived at our door. I opened it slowly, with Dana by my side. The first sentence nearly knocked the wind out of me. The Commission finds that the Crestfield Estates Homeowners Association engaged in discriminatory practices in violation of the Fair Housing Act. We won. I didn't jump or shout. I just sat down, quietly overwhelmed, and let the words settle. Dana wiped her eyes. For once, they were tears of relief. The report outlined everything. The pattern of targeted violations, the coded language in the board meeting minutes, the removal of my public notice, even the intimidation my kids faced. It all added up. The outcome was decisive. Cheryl Whitmore was officially removed as HOA president. Within days, 2 other board members resigned. A new interim board was formed, and to my surprise, they asked if I'd serve as a community representative. I agreed, reluctantly but firmly. Reform followed quickly. The HOA was ordered to revise its bylaws and enforcement procedures under legal supervision. All board members had to complete anti-discrimination training, and they had to hold public forums every quarter going forward. No more secret meetings. We also received compensation, not millions, but enough to cover our legal fees, and a small settlement for emotional distress. It wasn't about the money, though. It was about the principle. I stood in front of our house a few days later, watching my daughter ride her bike down the street without looking over her shoulder. And for the first time in a long time, this neighborhood felt like home. It's been nearly a year now. I sit on the front porch, coffee in hand, while my son races his sister down the sidewalk on their bikes. Their laughter bounces off the homes that once felt like walls closing in. Now those homes feel different. A neighbor waves from across the street. Greg, who once avoided eye contact, now always stops to chat. A new family moved in last month, Latino with twins in tow, and just last week I saw a Muslim couple touring the open house 2 blocks over. Crestfield Estates is starting to look like what it always claimed to be. A community. HOA meetings are held in the clubhouse every first Tuesday of the month. Transparent, public, no whispers behind doors. I still serve as the community representative, Not because I love rules and policies, but because I've seen what happens when no one watches. Dana smiles more these days. Her anxiety has eased. She plants tomatoes in the backyard now without checking over her shoulder, and every time we get an HOA letter, it's a routine notice. Nothing targeted, nothing petty, just fair. It took a fight, a public one. One we never wanted. We didn't move here to make a point. We moved here to live, to give our kids a good future, a safe home and peace. But when living means standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, you don't just do it for your family. You do it for every family that comes after. That's what makes it worth it. That's what makes this place finally feel like home. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already subscribed to HOA Unveiled, we'd truly appreciate your support. Subscribing ensures you never miss the next eye-opening story about life. Behind the gates and the rules that try to control it, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay tuned, because the truth about HOAs is just getting started.